Hey guys, GameFan here back with another Path of Exile video and another black shirt. Now, this time I have the Ward Loop Ascendant Scion build guide. Let's just call it like a mini guide or something, or just like a showcase of where currently the build is, because I'm sure I will miss some stuff out and I feel like the build isn't complete yet, so I'm not really willing to call this like a full build guide. It's just like an actual showcase of where the build currently is. Before I go into gear, skills, what the mechanic is, I just want to showcase it by showcase the build by doing a formed invitation. Now there is like double damage mod on this and non-cursor effect and everything, so we'll see how this goes. We're gonna turn on RF and we're gonna get this party started. Now this range should be enough. Okay, they are dead. And that's done. Okay, so you might be wondering, like, what the hell was that? In trying to just say the main mechanic as like simply as possible, we have some minions which we will be casting by weapon swapping. We have 3 minions, and when we weapon swap back, those minions would die. We will take a bunch of damage from 2 hardbound loops, which is gonna be reduced by the ward we have to our life, but we're still going to count that damage for all the cast on damage taken setups. And one of them is going to cast another minion, another set of minions, which are going to be extremely short-lived and very precisely calculated on how long of a duration they have, and it's gonna do another set of cast on damage taken procs, and then another one, then another one, and another one, and it's just going to self-sustain. Now, in order to make that work, we need to have ward permanently. If right now I'm just weapon swapping once, I will lose my ward instantly, and all my life will go down to 0 pretty much, because we don't have permanent ward. The main ward is going away after one hit, so as you can see, I weapon swap, my HP go down to instantly 0, and it would be really bad if the mapping experience was like this, like we had to make sure that we don't even take one single extra damage because we would be dead anyway. And the way we can achieve this is by having an all rots resolve flask. Now there is this extra effect that ward does not break during its effect, meaning that it's going to be reduced because it has 70% less ward during effect, but it's gonna stay up permanently, and that's going to tank up 1239 damage every single time. That is going to block it as long as we can have the flask up, and as you can see, we have permanent flask here. It is never gonna run out. We are gonna have permanent flask, and when we weapon swap, constantly spawning minions. In order to achieve such specific skeleton durations, one part of the tree that we can use is this window of opportunity with less skill duration and reduced skill durations. But another thing that we need to use is 2 dust jewels, and these need to give exactly 34% reduced skeleton duration. That's just how the math works out. If we go into PoE, go into the calculations, and take, for example, summon skeletons, make sure we look up summon skeletons, and here you can see the skill cooldown is exactly the same as the skill duration, which is actually pretty, like, that's the whole point of all of this, that is, these two numbers should be equal, and that's how you're going to achieve this perfectly efficient loop. And here you can see what adds to the reduced multiplier that you can see. I'm also using anomalous minion speed support. It's 40% reduced minion duration that is also working towards this summon skeletons. And the reason we are not using regular summon skeletons but anomalous summon skeletons is that this alt quality has the minions cannot be damaged for 2 seconds after being summoned. Now, like here, when I'm doing this in it doesn't have any effect on the main loop just by itself. Like you could be using regular summon skeletons for this, right? Like that wouldn't be a problem. But if you want to map and you have like a lot of area damage going on, your minions would die in suboptimal times. Like they would die, for example, immediately after they being summoned. which is not good. That would just break the loop. They need to die in a very specific time interval, that's 0.198 seconds. And so that's why we are using this anomalous summon skeletons. It could be any quality, like it could just be like 1% or something. But yeah, it's just, if we can have it 20%, 20 quality, why not have it 20 quality? And the other link in this minimalistic, in this main trigger loop, for link, I don't know what I just said there, is Forbidden Right. That's because we want to boost the amount of damage we take by a little bit, so the loop can be more sustained and stuff. Like we're taking extra 40% max life as chaos damage with every single cast, and that's also gonna be casted every like 5 times a second. That's why it's important to have like really high amount of life recovery, because as you can see, my chaos res is minus 60. So if I were to just like have 0 regen, I would have ward, for example, but I wouldn't have that life recoup. I would still die. Like I would still end up dying every single time the loop goes on. So that's another reason why it's actually important. And the reason we cannot use chaos resistance to help like reduce the amount of damage we take is then we would be taking less damage, and taking less damage at certain points would actually not make us take enough damage that we can continually cast our cast on damage taken links. It's a bit complicated if you ask me, compared to like, I don't know, a cyclone build which just spins. Mechanically it's like just really easy. You just weapon swap once and then you just walk, and then the skills auto target, and it's really good. But like putting together just by yourself is gonna be a little bit more difficult than most builds. There is an amazing Discord channel for all of this, and this is I think the full name is like Cast on Damage Taken Makers Discord. There is like so many really detailed documentation about what you should do, what are like cooldown reduction breakpoints. This is a complete checklist of if your build is not working for some reason, this you should check. And there is like there are like calculators for cooldown reduction breakpoints. There is like in case you're dying a lot, these you could do. This is how to get a 4 flask setup. Like as you can see right now, I have a 3 flask setup, but I feel like it's enough now. I will try to upgrade it at some point. This is how to make it work with an occultist or elementalist, mana issues, how to become even more tanky and stuff like that. And there is like upgrade possibilities somewhere here. So this is really cool. There are PoB examples with listed budgets on them. Here's how you can craft some of the items that you will be using for this build. This is the base of how I made my cooldown reduction belt that you saw in the last video. And here's where you can make discussions with about crafting with other people. There's currency farming, trading for these specific items that you will be using in these builds, and that is the timeless jewel specific trading channel. Okay, I will go over the skill tree. I'm a little scatterbrained. I'm sorry about that. So we are a Scion, so we are starting from the middle, and we will take this route down here. We will take this jewel socket, and for right now I'm using double crit multi life jewels. That's just more life. We can sustain this more easily, and we are like actually more tanky. And then double crit multi is because we are using Ice Spear as a main 6-link. And we are taking this node as a travel, and then we are taking this damage taken recouped as mana. Like as you saw earlier how much damage we are taking every single second, we need to sustain the mana cost of this loop. Like we are casting so many skills. The Ice Spear has a mana cost of 207 even with reduced mana cost, so we really need to keep this up that we can actually efficiently DPS. As you saw earlier, this window of opportunity, you shouldn't take this last skill effect duration mastery if you don't have 27% cooldown reduction. Because if you have like the 9% breakpoint, this last skill effect duration will break the build. Your minions won't last long enough, and you will have no idea why the build is not working. Just don't take this, take something else instead. Here's another jewel socket for a Watcher's Eye. It's just like a basic crit chance while affected by hatred Watcher's Eye. I'm taking these 2 points because I'm having crystallized omniscience, so more stats means like I can actually equip my item first of all, and then how much? We have 997 omniscience right now, which is I think exactly how much I need. And we will obviously be having more elemental pen, so that's always really useful. This dexterity bunch is of course again for the omniscience. We have this mark node, so we're getting more damage against hits with marked enemies, mark effect, and calling strike, and we have 10% chance to gain a frenzy charge when we are hitting a marked enemy. Here we have an 8 passive large cluster recall damage. I should actually just get one with 3 notables. That would be more efficient use of my resources. But anyway, I have this blanketed snow yet, and I will get something else. I don't know yet. And then there is I'm using 2 4 passive projectile damage clusters with eye to eye repeater on both of them. And then there is another live double crit multi jewels. Now, if we go to the Ascendancy, as you can see, I'm taking Elementalist for the more exposure, cannot take elemental damage reflect, and more shock effect. And then we take the Witch starting path, so we can take this part of the tree. And then I'm also taking a Pathfinder, so we can get even more flash charges, and we can keep our Aura's Resolve up 100% of the time during maps and against bosses as well, so we're not gonna just randomly die because our flask wasn't up. And if you want to, if you have the currency for it, which I'm farming right now, you can buy a Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flash combo with Deadeye. That's gonna give you permanent tailwind and I think one extra projectile, so that you will be really fast and really strong. Because we are doing Ice Spear, and more projectiles means big times more damage. We take this part of the tree just for more life and mana. We take this node, Essence Extraction, for more flash charges gained. And here we take Utility Flash gain 1 charge per 3 seconds, just a bonus. We take Mind Over Matter to be a little bit more tanky, but if we don't take this, as you can see, my HP takes bigger jumps, but my mana doesn't. So if you have mana problems but feel like you're tanky enough, you can just take Mind Over Matter, but I feel like it's better this way. I can sustain my mana pretty easily, and I want to be more tanky. Here's another live double crit multi-jewel. Here's a staff node, because we are using a staff. This is just gonna be crit multi, crit chance, and 30% increased defenses while wielding a staff is actually really strong. Without this node, you will see, I am only 1000 ward, which means like we're taking like a lot more damage actually. Like having that extra 30% increased defenses, it's really important. And then we have a 12 passive cold cluster jewel. I feel like I've kind of wasted this since I'm not using these 4, and I just realized that if you're doing an omniscience build, all attributes doesn't actually get transformed into all 3 attributes then omniscience. Like this is not 12 to omniscience. If you don't know how omniscience works, modifiers to attributes instead apply to omniscience. Now that means it's not 4 to all attributes, so in order like 4 dex, 4 strength, 4 int, it's just 4 omniscience. It doesn't get split up and then converted to omniscience. Like it would be 12 if it worked that way, but now it's just 4, so it's kind of a waste. And here I have 2 flask medium cluster jewels with flask effect duration and 35% ink effect on both. And on this I have a fasting node. I should have this on the other one as well, I just didn't buy it yet. It gives us increased fast charges gained, again for the Aura's Resolve, and increased movement speed while under no flask effect, which is... it's kind of pointless. Okay, I thought that was the other way around. What? Okay, anyway. There is the 2 dust jewels, which I've already talked about. Here is we take this power charge wheel, so we can have more power charges. And I do this cannot be shocked while at maximum power charges, because I don't really have any other way of being consistently shock immune. So I feel like once we get into mapping, that's gonna be really easy. You shock immune all the time, because once we are shocked on map mods, there is like 50-60% shock effect that we're going to be having. That means that all of that huge amount of damage that we are taking is going to be multiplied by another 1.5, 1.6. So we will just die in a few seconds if you aren't tanky enough. I'm also taking some extra life nodes here, some extra mana, which reduce mana cost, again for the sustain. Here's the life recoup part of the tree, and then I'm taking increased max life, just because I feel like that's the most powerful that you can have in this bunch. Again, this infused flash is this part of the tree is really amazing. This is what's keeping us alive technically. With this much recoup, we can stand in like most damage over time effects. We can completely ignore 10 stacks of corrupted blood if you just have this basic loop running, and it's insanely strong. Then we take this extra power charge, and then we have this brutal restraint with Bala Bala as a denoted service of 6022 Dakara. Yep, you figure it's historic. I don't understand. But the main reason that we take that is because it transforms this keystone into the traitor, which gives us 4 flash charges per empty flask slot every 5 seconds. Which, if I were to have just these two, that means that they would gain another 4 charges every 5 seconds. Now they're gaining 8 only instead of 12. But I feel like we can maintain all these 3 flasks up 100% of the time. So it's just really strong. And this flash charges gained is getting boosted by all of the extra flash charges gained mods that we have on all of the stuff. Okay, so now that we went over the passive tree, let's go over the items quickly. I'm using a Skin of the Lords as our as our main chest piece. I don't know, a Skin of the Lords is just like the best best item for a lot of caster builds. Plus 2 level of socket that gems, insane. 100% global defenses, buffs the fuck out of ward. And then we have Hexmaster, which is currently like, I'm not using hexes, so it's just whatever. Yeah, I'm just taking a keystone that doesn't ruin the build. On the Discord, you can also look up what keystones are actually ruining the build. So just make sure to don't take any of them. And then we're using a anomalous ice spear. It's just, I feel like, the best version of ice spear. You could be using a regular one completely, and it's like still really strong. But I really like the +2 pierce that I can have from it, and I've already had it for my cast on crit build, so I've just reused it. And then we're doing increased crit damage support, because Ice Spear really heavily benefits from having as much crit damage as possible. A Divergent cast on damage taken support. Now, the odd quality of this is that you need to take less damage in order to trigger the cast on damage taken. Now, I only have it 17% quality, which is a little bit of a shame, but I feel like it's fine enough. Now, it needs 17%, so instead of 3,580, we can just calculate this out by 3,580 times 0.17. We need to take 608 less damage. So it's like 2,900 instead of 305,000. So we can easier, like it's more easy to get to 5 casts per second with this. Like, you don't need to miss out casts if you're just having a regular one. We're using an Awakened Elemental Focus for the +1 support gems, 40% more LE damage, but we're not gonna be able to chill from Anomalous Ice Spear, it would be a problem because it's a nice defensive layer. But we have Freezing Pulse and Creeping Frost, so we don't need to worry about that. I'm using an Empower 4 for more levels because, again, flat levels and crit multi are the ones that are really strong on Anomalous, on like any Ice Spear, so it's fitting in nicely. And also it's getting buffed from the Skin of the Lords, so it's level 6 Empower. And then an Awakened GMP because, again, they're talking about Ice Spear and more projectiles is more damage. We've talked about this scaling already. And I'm using a Runic Crown because that is the base that has more ward. Now you need to use Runic Gauntlets, Runic Sabatons, and Runic Crown to get as much ward as possible. Because if I don't have this flask, I'm getting 3,600. So you really need to work on having as much ward as possible. Whoops. Never mind. Same for the boots. I think it's double tier 1. Yep, double tier 1 ward with movement speed. It's double tier 1 and a tier 4. And this is a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 wards. So these are pretty high numbers actually. I have an Ice Spear additional projectile enchant on it. This is pretty expensive. And then I have increased effect of non-damaging ailments and physical damage taken recouped. Again, it's gonna help out to keep as much life as possible. On here, I have increased cooldown recovery rate and increased action speed for the implicits. Cooldown recovery is to help me get to the 27% breakpoint. You can use 7% cooldown recovery, it's fine. And then action speed is just to increase our cast speed, which is gonna increase our damage. Nice. On the belt, you might have seen my video crafting this belt, or talking about how to craft this belt. You can check that video out here somewhere. I don't know, I will put it on the screen, so you can check that out. It's really insane. It's tier 1 life. We are using reduced flash charges used, so this can be more generous, and it doesn't actually use up as many charges as it needs to. Increase cooldown recovery rate, kind of obvious. We can like trigger skills faster, and then increase flask effect duration, so get more lasting auras resolve. And then on my gloves we have cold exposure on hit and unnerve on hit. Those are really nice DPS increases for spellcasters. And yeah, that's about it. The weapon is an Annihilating Light. Now it's really important that you get this green version, this foil version. This foil version increases the damage done by like 50 to 90% depending on how cool you are actually. No, it doesn't. It says a really strong mod on the deal triple damage with elemental skills, but also a heavy downside of 67% reduced elemental resistance. Now that's going to be an overall multiplier, I think, if I'm correct. It's an overall multiplier is gonna be minus 0.67. So if I were to use this, I would gain 50 fire res, but if I actually press it, I'm not gaining 50 fire res, I'm gaining 17. And that's why you really need to have as much resist on your gear as possible, because it's gonna be heavily reduced by this Annihilating Light. You could get a minus like a 60% roll. It's not even that expensive. I just wanted one with chance to gain power charge on crit as an implicit, so I can generate charges against bosses, because for most parts on maps you can pretty much instantly get 4 charges once you get to this Disciple of the Forbidden, which is gonna get you 8% chance to gain a power charge on kill, but against bosses that doesn't really work, so I wanted to have this 7% power charge on crit implicit. It's not even that expensive. I think it was like 2 divines or something, and I even got this beautiful foil item. And in this link I have a freezing pulse with creeping frost. This is just to have some extra clear. I'm using an arcane surge to get more spell damage, more mana regen, stuff like that. More mana regen actually doesn't even matter that much, since we are gonna be having most of our mana back from the recoup mechanic. And we also have a bone chill support. This is gonna make the enemies chill on it, take increased damage based on how strong that chill is. And then we have onslaught, just because onslaught is good. And the regular cast on damage taken support. Other skill links is a cast on damage taken sniper's mark, just more damage for projectiles. I have a hatred with eternal blessing, so it doesn't take up any mana. That also means that it is the only aura that we can use. The only aura that reserves mana. If you were to take a Herald of Ice and link it with Arrogance support, so it reserves life instead of... I think I can actually show it, that it just works. So if I take Nice. Take like a 20, and then we take an arrogance. If we take it like this, we can actually use Herald of Ice. Like you see, it's actually active, even though we have an Eternal Blessing on. But and this is what like endgame builds use. Like for absolute top tier max DPS, people use a Skin of the Lords with Pain Attunement, which is gonna give you a 30% damage multiplier once you're low life, and use this setup of Herald of Ice to get as much damage as possible. It's an insane damage boost, but right now I just wanna get the feel of the build a little bit to, you know, just be able to do stuff while I'm more tanky. And cast on that portal because I'm playing Omega Softcore. And then Flame Dash and RF. Now this could be a Divergent RF, so that it could give me even more spell damage, but I feel like regular RF is fine right now. I think it would be like a million DPS increase if I were to get a Divergent one, but I feel like it's good enough. Oh, I also have a Hypnotic Eye Jewel for max life, movement speed if you've killed recently, lightning damage to spells, so we can actually shock, and then effect of non-damaging elements. It doesn't really matter since it's a corrupted implicit, and I feel like you can't really rely on these, but... And yeah, I feel like this is all I wanted to say about the build. I just wanted to show like how good it feels for mapping. Hope you guys don't mind that there is an extra map showcase at the end and also at the beginning. And we have weapon swapped, so we apply the Orot's Resolve Flask, as you can see it's running, and then we weapon swap back again, and the loop is running. We can activate RF and just walk through the map. Oh, nice. Some extra life. And we are just walking. If your loop breaks for any reason, there is these temporal proximity shield enemies which break the loop for some reason. I don't fully know why. It maybe delays the damage you would take. All you need to do is make sure that your flask is up and then just weapon swap again. You can just weapon swap multiple times if the loop really doesn't want to start. But yeah, it's just weapon swap again to restart it. And then we're just gonna annihilate the Chimera again. But yeah, we just walked and we did this map. So that's how currently the build looks like. If I missed anything that you would be interested in, I'm not really good at crafting, so maybe if you want to go for crafting advice, then I would, you know, craft talk channel on this Discord. And yeah, but besides that, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in comments, in Discord, in game even. My in-game name is Super Autospear right now, you can find me by that. And you can just ask me anything. I'm more than happy to answer pretty much anything that you guys ask. And yeah, that's about the build I wanted to say. And see you in the next video, guys. Bye!